Welcome back to Laughing in the Dark, the podcast where I hang out in haunted places with comedians. I'm your host, Sara Jones. This is another fixture in our Minisode series where listeners tell me their ghost story. This Minisode is a little longer, so I guess that Minisode title is pretty arbitrary in this instance, but I didn't want to sacrifice good content just to keep it short, so whatever. For this episode, I got to talk to Aleksander from Playa Vista, California. Aleksander came to America as a refugee from Croatia and is currently the founder and chief creative officer of Beyond Logic Studios and the creative director for an advertising agency called Logic Global Vision, LLC. He has worked in the entertainment industry for 7 years and has directed several music videos, commercials, and short films. He is the writer and director of the feature film Beyond the Call of Duty, which is on sale worldwide. It was even recently released in India, dubbed in Hindu. Alex told me a story about an abandoned insane asylum he explored with a buddy of his in Buffalo, New York, where he had a very unique and chilling experience. Here's the call.
I'm excited. So then I'm ready whenever you are, so we can go ahead and dive in. I actually haven't told this story in a while, so this will be fun.
I'm excited. Okay, I'm ready. Let's start with, why don't you tell listeners your name and something about yourself? Just introduce yourself.
Okay, so my name is Aleksander. I go by the stage name Captain Xander, or just Captain. I know it sounds really silly, but I work as an entertainer, a promoter, and then primarily I do creative directing for music videos, short films, commercials, things like that. So yeah, that's about the most interesting thing about me besides my ghost stories. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, walk me through your story. Where does it take place?
Okay, so the story itself takes place in a town that you should probably never visit unless you're going to Niagara Falls, called Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
But Buffalo is I've lived there for a while. When I had moved to the United States originally as a refugee, and I just wouldn't recommend living there. There's really nothing there, nothing interesting. It's kind of a dead end.
A refugee from where?
I had moved out here from Croatia.
Wow.
It was right before I hit my teens. And it was during all that war and all that chaos in the 1990s that was going on in the Balkans area. So I had, that was around the time when we moved out as refugees. So I was with my mother, father, and older brother. And the place where they kind of just tossed us after we had gotten here was Buffalo, New York.
Wow. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was probably like, it's so funny, like when we were on our way to the United States, and the running through the program and going through all that stuff, they like talked up, the country so much, and the whole streets are painted in gold kind of thing, opportunities everywhere, which is actually pretty true in comparison to most countries. But it was so funny because I took it very literal. So I took, streets painted in gold, and then we got to Buffalo where there's like trash everywhere.
Yeah.
And looking around, I'm thinking, wow, this is not. I don't think I truly understand the meaning of the word gold anymore.
Right. You're like, this is not what I had in mind. False advertising.
Big time. I wanted my money back, but they didn't give me any, so.
Right.
I didn't pay any or something like that. It was weird.
Just broken promises.
Yes, very broken. And a tiny little broken heart.
Oh.
So yeah, that's, I guess, the long story short. There's like a whole adventure to that in itself. But so while I was in middle school, or I'm sorry, not middle school. While I was in high school, I was still in Buffalo, and I met this good buddy of mine. Well, he became a very good buddy of mine. He's actually currently my photographer. His name is Salvatore Sabia, and him and I had this overly very strong what would you call it? A very strong fascination with the paranormal.
Okay. Yeah.
And we went exploring like as many different places around Buffalo that people claimed were haunted. And this place that we went to is called the Richardson-Olmsted Complex, which is just this, it used to be an asylum back in the day, but it was closed down, I want to say somewhere around like 1986, somewhere around there. So now this is like a ridiculously old building. It was built in the late 1800s, and it's just absolutely massive. Like I don't really even know how else to put it into perspective, other than it's almost the size of like a large college campus. I'm talking like an entire campus, and it's just all one massive building.
Yeah.
So,
whoa.
So not only is America the land of opportunity, but it also has a lot of crazy people.
Oh yeah, apparently. That's definitely true.
So this complex, this has been closed, and at the time they started doing renovations to certain parts of the buildings to try to get people to come back. And some people were, reporting hearing like sounds or hearing moans and things like that. So that really caught our attention. We were like, wait a minute, this is something. It could be something. And this building is so old, and it used to be an asylum, and there was rumors going around about experiments and like the people who were in there being abused and all that sort of stuff. And there was a rumored like basement area where they would like keep the people that were really crazy tied up, and then they would mistreat them and all this other stuff. Some of them died at the asylum, and their spirits were remained in that area. So there's like supposed to be this really heavy aura within this building. So this really caught our attention. But the difficult part about this whole thing was going to be is there was a whole lot of security in that area because of all the reconstruction that they were doing. But again, this building was just so massive, and the reconstruction that they were doing was just in one little area. So a good portion of the areas around the building had no fences or anything, so we actually had to try to find a way to get inside without hopefully breaking in.
Yeah.
So for like 2 days we went through and we did like a reconnaissance. We walked around the entire complex, around the entire building. Actually, now that I think about it, I wish I could have gotten him in on this phone call.
Yeah.
I wish I could have gotten him in the recording. I should have. I wish I would have thought of that, but that's fine. He's weird. He's a busy guy.
So you you kind of scoped out the building to figure out how you were going to get in before you actually went?
Yeah.
Smart.
We wanted to make sure, because our whole thing was we wanted to make sure that we got in and out of there without any kind of, more or less not ending up in jail.
Definitely.
At the time, we're technically trespassing, so.
Yeah.
So the second day we did our reconnaissance, we came across a window that looked like it was completely just like the whole window was removed. Now here's where the creepy stuff starts. When we did the reconnaissance the first night, we passed by this window, and both of us are pretty sure that window was relatively barricaded, and there was definitely glass. It was an actual full-blown window. And a few days later, when we did our second day of reconnaissance to try to see if maybe we can figure out like a pattern to like how where the security goes, when they go there, how often they walk around the building, as we were just kind of strolling around. There's like a little walk path you can walk around the building. So we were just, and the building was actually pretty close to a building that was, if you look it up, it's called Buff State. It's like a small college building.
Okay.
And so we tried, at one point the security was asking us like, hey, what are you guys doing? We're like, oh, we're just students here. We're just walking around talking. He's like, oh, okay, cool. And that was it. And so now the second day when we were walking around, that same window that was an actual window was completely just open. There was no glass, and it didn't look like anyone broke through, or like there was no signs of breaking and entering. It was almost like something was inviting us to come inside, and that was like such a, right away when we saw that, we both like looked at each other and were like, that was a window the other day, wasn't it?
Whoa, yeah.
So now, I at the time was a skeptic. I didn't really, Sal was very into the deeper part of the paranormal, and I was always thinking, you know what, there's logical explanation for this and for that and for this. So him and I made a really great team in investigating all this stuff, because we would both keep it relatively real. So he would be able to pick up on certain things, and then I would be able to almost like call him out on his bullshit if I think it's not actually something frightening. And
yeah, you'd kind of check him.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think that was the first time where I've really I was looking and I was like, I was very certain that was a full glass window the few days ago that we passed through. So yeah, I didn't really know what to think at first. So we were like, you know what? It's open. It's fine. If there is some sort of a spirit. Now, again, they were doing renovations. So my go-to thing was, okay, they're probably replacing some of these windows and they just didn't get the job done. So I just went with it. So we ended up hopping in, and when we got inside, it was so if you were on the main street, it was the side of the building all the way to the right. So it was the furthest right side of the building.
Okay.
And actually, if I had a map, I would be able to mark it perfectly. Like I remember exactly where it was, where we got in.
Yeah.
And when we went inside, it was, now I don't know, again, if it was just the building itself and it being old and how it was, but the moment we got inside, the atmosphere was completely different. Like it felt dense. It felt discomforting. But I don't know. It might have been just because we were going into somewhere that we were expecting it to be pretty paranormal, and we were expecting to come across some pretty weird stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we got in, it was weird. It felt like the atmosphere had changed. It was definitely colder inside. And we started to kind of walk around. We checked the first floor. There was really nothing. Little noises here and there, but that was just like the construction creaking and just the building being old.
Yeah.
Now we get up to the third floor. I want to say there was 5 floors altogether on the building plus a basement area. And we get up to the third floor, and the entire third floor looked like it was, it looked so post-apocalyptic. It was so weird. It was like the entire place was set on fire, and it was just nothing but ashes remaining on the ground. And
it wasn't actually fire though, right? Like there wasn't actual fire damage, was there?
No, it didn't look like there was. It was really bizarre. It was just ashes everywhere, and it looked like as if it could have, the ground looked like it could have been like a post-fire, ashes, and then even on the desks and everything, but there was no damages from fire anywhere around.
Interesting.
The upper parts of the room or anything. So that was, and again, I'm explaining it away. I'm like, it could be, who knows?
Yeah.
So as we're walking by, we in the ashes. So it was like, it almost looked like what it could have been like a few desks where they were doing their office work. I'm sure that they had like people who worked in that building that had to have like little working desks. But it almost like that floor almost kind of felt like a cubicle, but not like a traditional cubicle you'd see now in like a store. It's or a bank or anything. It looked different. It was structured differently. It was like business cubicles. I don't really know.
Yeah.
So as we were walking through, we saw something written inside the ashes, and it was so chilling when we first saw it. And it said "Welcome to Hell" written in ashes.
Oh my God!
Pure English. And Sal just kind of like looked at me, and I looked at him, and I was like, "No, I'm not buying it."
Yeah,
I'm not buying it.
You're like, someone set this up.
Yeah, and honestly, and I did believe that, and I was like, what, did somebody set this up? Because somebody else could have broken into this place just like we did and explored. And as we kind of walked a little bit further down, we found some like wrappers from like Reese's cups and like stuff like that. So I kind of like, okay, so clearly somebody else broke in here. And then we walk a few more steps forward, and again, written in the ash on the floor, said, "Suck my dick."
Oh. Yeah.
And I looked at Sal again, and he looked at me, and he's like, "Okay, fine. Somebody broke in here. It's not a spirit."
Yeah.
We're like, exactly. So, but that was like the weirdest thing. It's like, oh, you know what? This started off really creepy, and then it just kind of turned into a juvenile. It had me for a second. I did feel like, oh my God, this is really happening. There's something in here.
Yeah.
And it's like because it almost like played along with it, right?
Yeah.
First, the window thing happened, and then all of a sudden, the welcome to hell. Like something was trying to welcome us to this place.
Yeah, yeah.
And then somebody goes and screws it up by writing "suck my dick" in the ashes. So.
Oh, well, that's a bummer.
Yeah, it was. But so now, as we kind of kept walking through, so we investigated that last floor, and we got to this very long hallway, and the hallway had a curvature to it, so we couldn't see what was on the other side. So we walked down the hallway and we tried the door, and it was barricaded. We couldn't get through. Mm-hmm. So we were just kind of trying to figure out, like, okay, what are we going to do? And we thought, okay, well, so far, the entire building is relatively synchronized with each floor. So we said, let's work our way up to the fourth floor and check it out. So we went up to the fourth floor, did the same thing. It was barricaded. It's like somebody didn't want us to go specifically through that corridor, through those areas. So we worked our way back down again to the second floor, and we finally managed to get through that door. Mm-hmm. So now, same exact thing. Each hallway had a curvature to it, and then like a big door at the end. The fourth floor, when we got up to the fourth floor, the glass window on the door that we couldn't open was busted through. And the moment you approached the door, there was this awful stench of like rotten catalyst, as if something had died in there and it's been dead for like a few days. Just this horrible odor. But when we looked inside, there was nothing. It didn't look like there was anything dead in there. So like, and again, the hallway just kind of kept curving, so we couldn't see too far in. But it was almost like the moment you stepped in front of that door, you can just smell this like overwhelming stench of just something rotten, something that's been dead. Yeah. Yeah. And we just kind of look at each other and we're like, okay, well, it still doesn't really prove anything to me. So we worked our way back down. So now we got to the second floor. We finally get through that doorway. And as we're kind of walking through, we start smelling that stench again. And thinking, okay, this is now another floor in the building that has the stench. It's really strange.
Yeah, yeah.
So we keep walking, and then we get to this even now larger door. It looked like it was like a barricaded door. And we tried opening that, and it was locked. There was just no way to even budge that thing open. Now, here's where this is Sal's side of the story. Because for me, this situation just kind of ends right here, and then him and I basically turned right back around, and we started heading back to try to go into the basement. Uh-huh. Now, I remember us standing in front of that door, and we were just kind of looking out the door, and we were trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get through? Yeah. We're looking at each other, we're trying to figure it out, and then I was just staring at the door, examining it, and then Sal patted me on the shoulder, and he said, "Hey, you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't think we're getting through this door. I think we should just work our way back down work our way into the basement." Yeah. So he said, "Okay, but are you sure you're good?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm good." Now, I didn't think much of it, so I just kind of kept walking. Now, what Sal has done, I'm going to flash forward a little bit before I work my way back into the story. So Sal told me that when we were sitting in front of that door, that I was standing there, staring at the door, completely paralyzed, not even blinking, for a good 5 minutes.
Oh, weird. And you don't remember that happening at all?
Nothing at all. Like, if it did really, truly happen, and I'm not doubting him, I would trust this guy to take a bullet for me, but I didn't experience it. So
weird.
To me, it just felt like, okay, because, and that's, now thinking back at it, he was asking me, "Are you okay? Are you sure you're okay?" So to me at the time, it was weird that he was asking me that, because nothing was really wrong. It was just, we just couldn't get through that door. And, but yeah, he is, anytime we tell the story to anyone, he makes sure to point out that, I was just sitting there, just staring at this door for a good 5 minutes without blinking, nothing. It's like I was paralyzed, just staring at it.
That's wild.
And, and it wasn't until he patted me, until he, kind of bumped me in the shoulder that I kind of like snapped out of it. So I do remember him bumping me in the shoulder, and I remember him asking me if I'm okay. But in my memory, there was no 5-minute gap of me just standing there staring at this door without blinking. So
yeah,
I'm really terrible at staring contests as it is. So that's to me it was wild. So so now again, that was something that he experienced on his end, which was like, okay, that's great and all, but what more is there for me to experience? Because I still wasn't convinced at this place, So we worked our way down. We went into the basement. The basement seemed relatively clean. We were actually at the time approaching witching hour, and I told him, I said, whether I believe it or not, I really don't want to stay here past 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So we're getting relatively close to it, and we checked the basement. There was nothing in the basement either, just that overwhelming stench of death, except now that stench was just flooding the entire basement. It wasn't like in those other floors where it was just by those doors we couldn't get through. It was literally consuming the entire lower floor of the entire building. So I don't have anything to explain that. I don't think that there's just dead cattle just kind of sitting around on every floor of that building. So I can't really explain where that stench came from or where that odor came from, but I know for sure that I snuffed it and it smelled awful. So there was definitely some kind of odor there that really shouldn't have been there.
That seemed paranormal. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, the atmosphere around those areas was so much different. It just felt different to be there. It felt very chilling. And
did it feel evil?
So here's where now almost, I guess evil. Yeah, well, evil would be a really good word to describe it. So as we left the basement and we were walking our way up to the first floor again where we got in from, I didn't want to leave. So like I looked at Sal and I said, "But you know what? Maybe we should stay. Maybe we can find something in here." And I consciously was trying to convince myself not to leave the building. And I kept trying to find reasons. I said, well, let's go to the second floor and try that door again. I feel like maybe we can give it a shot. And Sal said, no, we're not going back. That's when he told me. He says, we're not going back to that door. You were standing there staring at that door for 5 minutes. I couldn't get you to snap out of it until I bumped you in the shoulder. Huh. I looked at him and said, no, that didn't happen.
But you had this drive to want to be on the second floor specifically?
I had this urge to not want to leave the building.
And the building in general.
The building in general. And I wanted to explore more. And it was almost like something was leading me to that second floor where again, that stench was really strong and that doorway was there that apparently I was paralyzed in front of. But yeah, I don't really know how to explain the sensation other than that it felt almost like magnetic, like mentally magnetic. It felt like there was something trying to keep me there.
Wow.
And Sal always makes the jokes about, like, oh, well, maybe you're one of these crazy people here. So,
oh, yeah, because there's an insane asylum.
Right. So you thought, maybe I belong there.
Yeah.
Friends. So, but when we were in there, we were on the first floor now, and we were thinking, okay, well, we do need to get out of here. Eventually security. And there were times when there was, the security from outside will shine lights across the windows. So there were a few times when they're shine those lights across the windows. So we were thinking at any point, security could walk into the, we actually didn't recon the building enough to see if they actually go inside the building to investigate the areas or if they're just walking around. At the time, we only saw them walking around. So Sal was trying to find a reason to get us out of there because he started feeling ridiculously uncomfortable since the whole little incident happened on the second floor.
Yeah.
And I kept trying to, now it's almost like things were flipped because he wanted to get in there to investigate and find something.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, okay, whatever. I don't really care. I don't think we're going to find anything, but we should at least get out of here before witching hour. And I don't know, it almost like completely flipped around. Like he felt ridiculously uncomfortable in the building and wanted to get out of there. And I felt at home. It was like, I think that's the best feeling I can describe it, is that I felt at home. I felt comfortable. I felt more comfortable being in this building than I had felt in my own place in Buffalo.
Wow.
Which is weird because, you know what I mean?
And that switched like closer to 3 a.m.?
Yeah, the closer we got to 3, I felt like the longer, I don't know if the time was really irrelevant, but definitely the longer we were in that building. Because at first when we got in there, I felt a little uncomfortable, especially once we found the ashes on the floor and the welcome to hell thing, and some of the stuff kind of did freak me out a little bit until we kind of, diagnosed the situation and realized, okay, this is just some punks that broke into the building and wrote, something ridiculous in there. And but the longer I spent, and it caught me completely off guard.
Yeah.
I can't pinpoint the moment where I just started feeling comfortable and I didn't want to leave. So, yeah, I kept wanting to explore, and it literally pretty much took Sal, not literally dragging me out, but he just kept walking away. He's like, I'm leaving. Like, I'm out of here. I'm going to walk out. You want to stay in here with all the crazy spirits and demons and whatever, you can stay in here. I don't care.
Yeah.
But, and I ended up starting to walk with him, and we walked up to the window, and we were waiting to try to see, if there was any security walking by or anything to try to crawl out of this window. And I kept looking at this window, and I kept feeling like something was trying to tell me, like, don't go through this window. It felt like, that, I don't know. Are you afraid of anything? Do you have something like some sort of a thing? Like, some people are afraid of heights, so they don't like flying. Do you have something that you're afraid of, something similar to that?
I'm terrified of spiders.
Okay. So I felt in that moment as if that window was covered in spiders.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? So that's like the equivalent that I can describe it as. Like, that window felt like my biggest fear. I didn't want to approach that window.
Like repulsive, even. Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't want to go anywhere near it. And then Sal saw it. He saw it in my face, so he forced me to go first. He was like pushing. He was literally like boosting me up and pushed me out of the window. And he's like, "You need to get out of here." So I came out, and it took him a few seconds to come out himself, but I ended up pulling him out. And we were right after we had gotten out of the building. I just felt this overwhelming discomfort, and I wanted to quit. Now, that same fear that I had of this exact same window a few seconds ago, I no longer had it. I had the desire to crawl right back through that window and back into that building.
Weird. Okay.
It was so strange, and like I said, I mean, I don't know necessarily that I can describe the feeling as evil, and here, this is, I think, where at least when Sal and I talk about it, he feels this is where, because he for sure felt something dark in there.
Yeah.
But to me, it was more comforting than anything else. So he basically, our discussions usually go with him saying, "Hey, look, whatever it is about you and whatever is in there is trying to create compatibility." So I didn't sense that there was evil there, because that evil was trying to get me to feel comfortable enough to stay.
Totally. That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, it was manipulating you.
Yeah, so like, exactly, yeah. And the strangest thing is like, I in my head, I kept going over, I don't know why I'm feeling like this. This is stupid. I know I need to get out of here. I know that we need to leave. But my feelings and my heart, and that's the crazy thing, is like, there was, at some point in my heart, I was racing because we were exploring this building. We never knew what we were going to find. And there was one point where my heart just kind of settled, and I felt completely comfortable, and I felt completely at home. So like, I was mentally going through this ridiculous anxiety, but my feelings were very settled.
Yeah. So there's like this dissonance there.
Yeah. And there was like this conflict. It was like an inner conflict of interest.
Yeah. Yeah. That is wild.
Yeah, and after we had gotten out of the building, for the next few weeks to a couple months after that, I had felt completely uncomfortable being outside. Like, all I could think about morning and night was how badly I wanted to go back into this place.
Wow.
And
for how long?
And I had run for I want to say it took about 2 months before it started really wearing off.
Wow.
But for about 3 weeks straight, every morning I woke up, every night I went to bed. I was even having dreams about exploring the place. It was bizarre. And it just there was just this overwhelming feeling of me. At the time, I was actually traveling a lot in that area. So like anytime I would even drive past the area, I just had this urge to go back. And sorry, that is a really loud vehicle, and it's not even close.
Yeah, that's okay.
So yeah, it was just really, and it took at least about 2 months before it completely kind of phased out of my life. And even driving past this building, I didn't really have that urge anymore. But it almost, on a day, and it's funny too, because I tried convincing Sal on multiple occasions to go back into this building, and he'd refused. So
wow.
Well, one day, this is a flash forward a few years later. I had actually at the time had moved out of New York, and I had come back to visit my family who was living out there. And Sal and I decided, what, for all time's sake, that was a really weird thing that happened. But now that we're a little bit more older and a little bit more mature, let's try maybe giving this a shot again. And we went back and we roamed around the building, and that window where we had gotten into before was completely barricaded. It was like just wood, and it was just completely closed off. Like there was just no way. And the strange thing is it was like bolted it was like bolted shut. Like there was no way that you could even pry this out. Like somebody wanted people to make sure to stay out of that freaking building. So
wow.
We never actually made our way back inside. And at the time when we went back there, I didn't have that feeling of wanting to go back inside again. So I felt like whatever happened to me had faded after that 2 month period had gone through very slowly. But yeah, I mean, the first few nights I had a dream that I was inside the building and that I was looking for someone, but I didn't know who it was. So it was like the strangest thing. I was like roaming around with this building, calling for someone, and I'm saying like, where are you? Where are you? And I don't know what in the world I was looking for. And when I would wake up, in my room and just looking around like, okay, that was weird. And why am I dreaming about this place?
Yeah. So did you say they were doing construction on the place when you guys first checked it out?
Yes, yeah. So at the time they were doing reconstruction on certain parts of the building to renovate it so that way they could open it up to the public as like a museum. Okay. But the renovations that they were doing was more closer to the centerpiece of the building. And again, this building was just, when you get a chance to research it and you see it on the map, even if you were just pull it up on the map and look at it, I don't know, like Google satellite imaging, you really get a perspective of just how ridiculously massive this building is. Like you could fit a small town full of people into this building. It was enormous.
Wow. So that room that was, that window that was like barricaded, do you know what was that room just not in use at all?
No, they never did anything with that. They never renovated it. They never did anything. They just barricaded the holy shit out of that window for I at first would imagine that they barricaded it because of, young kids breaking in and doing, basically exactly what Sal and I did. But the level of, like, the extent that they went into barricading this was ridiculous. Like, you would have to bring some pretty expensive tools with you just to pry this thing open, just to get inside this building. So, wow. Like, it wasn't a cheap barricade. Like, they've really nailed this thing shut, so that way there's just absolutely zero chances of anybody going in.
Into that specific window.
Yes, yeah, that's specific. And the thing is it was that window, and then the window, and then the two windows next to it, and the two windows above it. Okay. It was just that specific. And mind you, the windows next to it were not broken at all in any way. So there was no. But and again, there was plenty of other spots on that building where you can easily just throw a rock through the window and just crawl right in. Uh-huh. You know what I mean? So it's not like they really did much by barricading just that one little area, So I don't know, like again, I'm loosely into I'm into the paranormal stuff for more or less entertainment purposes because of what I do as a career.
Yeah.
I love writing horror stories and all that, but and then Sal is a lot more into it in the realistic aspect. And ever since I had this experience, like it opened my eyes to like a lot of new possibilities. And yeah, I've read into like a lot of stuff about how sometimes in order to keep certain spirits away, they would barricade something and then like put symbols or whatever. And then there was nothing drawn on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a basic wood. But my first thought when I saw this was that they were, whatever is in there, that they were trying to keep it in. And I was gone for a few years, so anything could have happened between now and then. And I never really went into researching it. So if I don't know, if you end up finding something, my God, I would love to hear it.
Yeah. Well, I'll take a look. What I was thinking is like, well, why didn't they just burn that fucking place down? But then you said it looked like there were ashes, as if the place had, like, what if they attempted to burn it and it didn't burn?
Wow, that is creepy.
You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know. But just from what you said, it sounds like you could almost believe that, you know?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, because it was really weird, and it was just on that floor. It was just on the third floor. There were ashes all over, and it was really strange because there was no damages. It was just, it was like they tried to burn this place, and maybe it worked, and then it just kind of like reshaped itself. Because when you look at the building, it actually is in really great condition, even from the outside.
Yeah.
You know, so. But the other thing is too, again, this building being as massive as it is, it might have actually cost more to tear it down than it did. But I don't know. I like to think the idea that whatever is in there really doesn't want that place to go down. Because let's face it, you know, I felt like I was at home when I was in there. Who knows how many other, you know, at this point, and it doesn't necessarily really have to even be evil entities. You know, something that Sal tossed around to me a lot is that maybe those things that, you know, that entity or whatever is in there or entities are lonely, you know, because that building has been, you know, for over 50 years, that building has been closed and nobody's really been in there until they just started doing the reconstruction on it. So, yeah, I mean, whatever is in there could literally just be lonely, you know, if there's nobody around to haunt.
Yeah, but you know, what I think about though? Just, first of all, how are they that lonely if it's that big of a building? One.
Right.
And two, even if they are lonely, their methods of trying to get you to stay there are still evil. You know, like making you terrified of the window to leave. And it's like a crazy ex-boyfriend or girlfriend. You know what I mean? Like only to an extreme.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you know, it's the way that I see it is like, it's almost like you know, when your parents tell you not to crack your knuckles because they're gonna, what is that thing that they say? Like, don't crack your knuckles because you're gonna get arthritis or something in the future. I don't know. But I remember like parents saying that you're not supposed to crack your knuckles because it's really bad for you.
Yeah.
Or like just anything that your parents would tell you that they don't want you to do, but they just, instead of just telling you like, hey, I don't want you to do this, they give you some sort of a scary reason as to why they don't want you to do it, just to terrify you out of it. So it was almost like this really manipulative method.
Yeah.
Trying to keep. Now, what really intrigues me though is why it is that Sal didn't experience those same feelings. Like he almost felt the opposite. You know, he felt hostility and he felt like he really needed to get the hell out of there. So maybe it was strange to me.
Well, he was more open to like the paranormal when he went there. So maybe because of that, he would have been quicker to identify like, no, this isn't good. I'm not into this because I believe in it. And maybe you were more susceptible because you were kind of just along for the ride. I don't know.
That might, yeah. I could probably see that, yeah. I mean, I know from like some of the things that I read, they say that like a lot of these evil entities will feed off of your fear and your belief. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like if you don't believe in it, there's like nothing to fuel from. Like it's almost like the well is dry and they have no energy to feed off of. So I just originally assumed that, you know, I don't really believe anything but Yeah, I mean, it could have even been that they were trying to comfort me into believing and then trying to use that to reel me in. I really don't know. Like it's such a confusing thing to now. Like I've been in a place that had paranormal experiences before. When we shot this project in New York, there's a city just outside of that Buffalo area called Middleport, and it was just a massive warehouse, and it used to be an area where they would like hold frozen meat. And we actually received permission to film a film there, and it was like a little military zombie film. It's called Beyond the Call of Duty. And so while we were filming, there were some really weird things that happened too with that. But again, I always just brushed it off as incident. Like one of the actresses like fell in a completely inexplainable way. She didn't trip over anything, and like almost like cracked her skull open.
Oh,
it was
God.
Really terrible. Like, yeah, it was like really bad. And then another one of the main actors during a fight choreography stabbed himself in the arm with a sheathed knife.
Oh my God.
Now, mind you, this was a sheathed knife that was hanging around his belt that stabbed him in the forearm.
How did that happen? It came out?
No, it was still completely sheathed even after I had stabbed him. It was so bizarre. Like I just remember us shooting it and then him jumping up to like do this spin kick choreography thing that we were working with. And I remember him landing and then him just yelling to like get this fucking thing off of me, and like he removed the knife. And I mean, we sat there trying to feel. Actually, the individual I'm talking about is Kevin Tansky. He's an actor from out of New York, and like him and I still sometimes go back and talk about how weird it is that he got stabbed by a sheath knife. It was
weird.
Completely in his sheath. And there's like a couple other little things. Like while we were shooting there, I ended up getting an eye infection, and my pupils actually stopped dilating for like a day. I had to go to the doctors, and they gave me like all this stuff, but we don't really know how it happened. It could have been, mold, but it could have been something more than that. So
weird.
Yeah, so like as far as like and then there was like some weird symbol that was like spray painted on the wall during one of the days that we were filming, and the paint was wet. That symbol wasn't there before, and then when we got up to it and we touched it, the paint was wet. Like it was like as if somebody recently put it on there. But that's easily explained. That area. So there's probably kids around there too. They could have busted in and spray painted stuff on the wall, and then when they heard us coming inside the building, they probably fled. But just a really bizarre thing. So I was never really a stranger to like paranormal things, but I was always able to write them off as like, well, it was an accident, or it was this, or it was that. And this is the one experience that I've had in my life, even as a skeptic, that I can say, because this is something I felt, it wasn't something I saw. It wasn't something that I could have written off as like, oh, it was a trick of the eye, maybe a shadow or a glare or something that maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah.
These were very real feelings that I was feeling that I still to this day can't explain why or how.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. That's amazing.
I mean, we'll see. Maybe sometime in the future, I'm going to end up like waking up in the asylum to find out that everything I'm experiencing now is a dream and that I'm actually still in there.
I don't exist. Like you needed to address this, so you like created me in your mind so you could explore this.
Right.
There is no podcast.
No. In fact, like my entire life for the last like few years has been a complete hallucination. Like
you're like, I'm in the entertainment industry. I'm doing pretty all right for myself. It's like not happening.
Right. Like I'm doing really great. I actually just I a couple of years ago directed a feature film that's actually selling on worldwide DVD. It's the funny thing is because like
nice, good for you.
Always wanted in life. Thank you. So like everything that I've wanted out of life is happening. So it does, sometimes, I mean, it is far-fetched, but, imagine that, right? If like everything that I'm experiencing since then has all actually been, like Sal has actually been like killed and eaten.
In the house.
Yeah. And I'm still inside that asylum, just kind of, making friends with crazy people.
I'm one of them. That's great. Yeah. I mean, about all your success. What's that?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I was going to say, you did say that you were a cat person, so, you probably belong in that asylum as much as I do.
Yeah, I probably do. Yeah. Who doesn't, really?
Yeah. It was a really weird experience, but it was, I think, and I, like I said, I still go back, and every time I discuss it with Sal, I'll bring it up to anyone, he's always very thorough to bring, and it's funny because anytime I talk about it, I usually just skip that point, because again, I don't feel like I stood there for 5 minutes staring at a door.
Yeah.
But he's very precise about bringing that up, and I don't know, like, if I had to guess at what point things started to turn for me while I was in that building, I would say that was probably it. If something like that really did happen, and Sal isn't, creating this, and again, I trust this guy with my life, so I do believe him when he says that.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was at that point when we were in front of that door on the second floor that whatever was there was behind that door,
Mm-hmm.
and then again, when we got into the basement, that same stench of death was there. You know what? Now that I think about it, that stench was very heavily presented in the basement area where Letitia had mentioned they did like most of this really horrible stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that stench was also behind every single one of those doors on every floor that we couldn't get through.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if,
why couldn't you get through them?
It was always something, like it was either barricaded.
Oh.
There was two of the doors were locked. It was just a lock, and we tried actually kicking them down and kicking them open, and they weren't even budging. Like, like when you kick a door or like push on a door, it still kind of budges a little bit.
Uh-huh.
These doors were, it's as if they were sealed tight completely.
Oh my God.
And then the door on the second floor where this whole incident happened, there was actually debris around the outside of the door.
Mm-hmm.
And then from I don't know how to explain it. Like it was, we didn't really touch the material or whatever it was, but it was just this stuff that was just all around the door that looked like it was embedded, or like, over the course of time, it just solidified itself into the door. So there's just, every door, we couldn't get through any of those doors to go further into the area. Even the one in the basement, like the one in the basement was the worst. There was just no way to get through this freaking door.
Mm-hmm.
So it's to me, it almost feels like opposing forces, like there's an entity there that wants us in there, but there might be also an entity that's trying to protect us from going in there.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, but that stench was in front of every single one of those doors that we can get through, and it was also throughout the entire basement floor.
Yeah.
So my assumption is maybe the basement is where this entity might be calling home, where it's kind of, at, and then every time we got to those doorways, that stench was still there. So it was almost as if this thing was following us from place to place, and it just couldn't get through. I don't know, maybe just the way that we can't get through that door to the other side, it couldn't get through from that door to us either.
And the fact that when you paused for 5 minutes and then you changed your perception, maybe that's when it kind of started to come, like the fact that you were standing at a door when you had that pause, that might be something.
Yeah, because Sal just said that I was just sitting there staring at it, just staring at the door, as if I was looking through it. Like when these people make those jokes about like when somebody looks at you so hard in the eyes, it's like they're looking into your soul.
Yeah.
So like it almost, from the way he describes it, almost kind of feels like that. Like I was just so mesmerized by whatever was there, but not necessarily the door, but something that was on the other side. Like it wasn't like I was just staring at the door; I was staring through the door.
Yeah.
But I absolutely, as far as I'm concerned, we walked up this door, we tried pushing it, kicking it open, and then I sat there, I folded my arms, and I was looking at it, and I was examining the door, and then he patted me on the shoulder and was like, "Hey, are you okay?" And that's all I remember. Like that's the memory that I have of that incident. And he told me that in that moment after we had done examining the door, when I just was staring at it until he had patted me on the shoulder. So yeah, him and I both experienced, it's funny because I read these like stories about these aircrafts that get abducted by like aliens and then they get put back into place.
Oh yeah.
And there's, and they have those, like these people have these stories where they say, well, and these are things that are confirmed by certain, like this airplane just falls out of the radar and it's not on the radar for a couple hours. It's like the plane just disappeared and then all of a sudden it appears right back on the radar in the exact same spot that it disappeared a few hours ago. Mm-hmm. And you're thinking, how the hell is that possible? And then and there is a clear time gap, and the people on those flights, they have absolutely no memory gap of that 3 hours that they lost in the air.
Yeah.
Where the airplane fell off radar and came back on. And it's my brother went to, my older brother, he went to school to go to school for a pilot, to be a pilot, a commercial pilot.
Yeah.
And he would like tell me some of these stories all the time. And anytime he tells me like that kind of story, that's what this kind of reminds me of, is that it's almost like I had a very similar experience, but on a paranormal level, like there was something else going on outside of outside of our realm or outside of our existence that I was experiencing that either I don't remember or, I mean, who knows? I don't know. I can't even...
Yeah.
No matter what way I try to dissect it, it's all just really theory outside of the fact that, like I said, all I truly know is how I felt being inside this building. And that was really the most terrifying thing, is that I felt at home in an asylum.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is awesome. I mean, that's terrible. It sounds awful, but it's also really crazy cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm thankful to the fact that, if something really truly did happen in there, I'm thankful that it turned out the way that it did, because it totally could have gone, I might have been one of those people in the articles in the newspapers that you read about, breaking into a place and then ending up like crucified on the wall somehow with no explanation,
Yeah.
So I still think I got away pretty okay.
Yeah, you've made it out. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much again for sharing your story. That is really, really awesome.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for having me on the show. This has actually been a whole lot of fun, I think. And it feels really good to actually talk about this story again. I'm actually got what would you say? Like I got little chills just kind of discussing it again. It feels like I'm experiencing the whole thing all over again. So.
Yeah. Wow. I am so glad Aleksander was finally able to shake that strange possession he experienced in such a creepy place. I have to say, I looked up the Richardson-Olmsted Complex in Buffalo, New York, and the place looks like a haunted castle. I'm going to include a picture on the Instagram for you to see this place because it looks absolutely horrifying. Don't forget to check out Aleksander's feature film, Beyond the Call of Duty. It's a science fiction film where a special operations recon squad fights to survive against a horde of undead experiments. Beyond the Call of Duty is on sale worldwide, including retailers such as Walmart, Target, and Barnes & Noble. If you have a great ghost story to share with me, we want to hear it. Send your stories in to litdarkpodcast@gmail.com. We might want to put you on the show. Thank you so much for listening.